Imagine for a moment that your son is laughing at something on his phone. You look over his shoulder just to take a look, and you see a funny video. You're not concerned, you laugh and you walk away. Now imagine that instead of that funny video, you see a pornographic image. Unfortunately, this is not a far-fetched scenario, and it is only one of a plethora of sexual ills that face your children in today's society. These ills include teen pregnancy and sexting and peer abuse, among many other things. And children, when faced with these threats, are given very little compensation in the way of healthy and accurate information about sex. Parents are the best source for accurate information about too embarrassed or simply don't know what it is and what is not. And it's understandable, as sex is often something of a taboo subject. However, in this sexual society, your kids are thinking about it anyway, and your avoidance of the subject does not go unnoticed with them. When you avoid talking with them about sex and treat it as something that's secretive, it causes them to form a warped view of sexuality. They view it as something that's always secretive and always dirty and always bad. When they have this warped view of sexuality, they often express their own growing sexuality in hidden ways and in unhealthy ways, such as the viewing of pornography. I remember as a young teenager feeling that my own increasing feelings of sexuality were not normal and that they made me a bad kid. When kids are not taught by their parents about healthy sexuality, where do they get their information about sex? The most obvious source is from schools, and while many public sex education programs are helpful, most only address the physiological aspects of sex, such as bodily development, and teach kids very little about healthy formation of relationships and the avoidance of unhealthy ones. To make matters worse, many sex education programs are based on the research of Alfred Kinsey conducted in the 1950s. Kinsey happened to prostitutes and imprisoned pedophiles to learn about child sexual responses. He also encouraged his friends to sexually abuse children to learn more about this subject. His conclusions based on this research were that kids are sexual creatures and that healthy education for them should include sexual technique and masturbation and gender fluidity. Kinsey's research has been banned by several nations, including Australia and Croatia. The Croatian government stated that Kinsey's research leads to promiscuity and pornography and homosexual behavior among kids as young as 9 years old. Kids also fill in their information about sex from media. It's no secret that television and social media and games contain blatant sexual messages. Most significant, however, is the use of pornography among teens and children. The Fight the New Drug Foundation stated that a majority of teenagers obtain at least some of their sexual education from pornography. This leads to a myriad of issues, both within relationships and within the brain. But at a very basic level, pornography fails to portray sex as something that's part of healthy relationships between good people. Porn also does not show the effects of harmful sexual practices such as partner abuse. Kids also learn a thing or two about sex from their peers, but it's rare that a peer has more helpful or accurate information about sex than your kids do. Peers tend to encourage one another to experiment with unhealthy and risky sexual behaviors and often introduce drugs and alcohol into this experimentation. So what can you do as a parent to help insulate your kids from these sexual influences in the world? The answer is that you have to teach your children what is true about sex, both as a preventative measure and to address specific issues that they have faced. There are many resources, if you're willing to look for them, in teaching your children about sex. My favorite was published by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the 1980s. It's a comprehensive parent's guide to teaching your kids about sex, and it covers guidelines for teaching kids from birth to engagement. I'd like to cover a few of these guidelines for kids to 18. For kids from birth to age 3, parents education is simple and should focus on the body. Parents can teach children that their body is an amazing gift, and that because they have a body, they can do things that they enjoy. They can run and play and eat good food and cuddle with mom. Parents can also teach kids that boys' bodies and girls' bodies are different, and that certain body parts deserve a great deal of respect. Parents also need to establish healthy guidelines and boundaries in relationships, and especially touch for kids of this age between friends and family and strangers. Examples of these guidelines include: we don't hit people that we love, and we don't hug strangers. For kids ages 4 to 11, parental teaching about sexuality is difficult. Their main responsibility is to help kids prepare for and understand changes within their emotions and their bodies that they'll experience at this stage. It's a difficult thing to teach them, but parents need to strive to make this a time that seems normal and good for their kids rather than a scary or an awkward time. Parents especially need to maintain a close relationship with kids of this age. Touch is one of the most important factors in this relationship, even if kids seem to resist it. Hugging your kids and touching their shoulder and even giving them a high five is so important. It teaches them that healthy touch within boundaries is a part of every good relationship. For kids ages 12 to 18, parents need to acknowledge their children's sexual urges. Acknowledge that they desire physical and emotional intimacy with other people, but they need to help their children control these urges and understand that there is a proper time and place for sex, but that it's marriage and not the teenage years. Parents can help their kids prepare for that proper time and place, learn healthy relationship skills for the day when they are married. Parents can talk openly with their kids about sex at this age and help them to understand why certain guidelines are a good idea. For kids of any age, it's so important to have a healthy model for intimate relationships. You and your spouse need to, with proper discretion, model an intimate relationship for your kids. Express affection for your spouse and treat them with respect. Show your kids what is and what is not good, and what is and what is not acceptable in a sexual and marital relationship. Again, please be discreet in how you model this intimate relationship, but show your children that intimate relationships are good. They just are not right for the teenage years. Imagine a world where children did not use pornography, where teenagers did not get pregnant, and where you didn't have to worry about molestation or harassment or abuse. Imagine what the world would be like for your children if these problems continue to worsen. Imagine that that image on your son's phone is not fictional, and it might not be. The Family Proclamation to the World states that individuals who fail to fulfill family responsibilities will one day be held accountable. If you fail to educate your children about the proper place and nature of sexuality, they will suffer. And as a result, you will suffer. Start small in your sexual education in the home, wherever your kids are, but don't leave them at the mercy of faulty information.